All right, let's dive right into this elite masterclass on books of prime entry. This is an absolutely essential topic that shows up in literally every single Cambridge Accounting AS and A-level examination series. If you're sitting for the 9706 syllabus, you already know that mastering the sales, purchases, and returns journals, along with the cash book and the general journal, well, it isn't just an option, it is the absolute bedrock of your entire exam strategy. Now today, we are not just going to recite textbook definitions. We're stepping out of the classroom and putting on the examiner's lens. We're going to deconstruct exactly how top-tier candidates secure maximum marks and, crucially, where average students bleed points. So, get focused, grab your notes, and let's decode the matrix of the Cambridge 9706 exam together.
So let's start by tackling the exact question that plagues so many candidates when they're faced with complex, multi-stage journal problems. You open the paper, you see a massive, high-tariff, 15-mark transaction scenario, and suddenly, total panic sets in. Why is this so incredibly difficult? It really comes down to command word anatomy. Examiners are testing your ability to seamlessly transition between entirely different cognitive skills. A lot of students treat words like explain, analyze, and evaluate exactly the same. They just list facts. But multi-stage analysis means you have to trace a single source document, like a credit note, right through the sales returns journal, then into the correct ledgers, all while maintaining absolutely perfect formatting. It's massive cognitive overload if you don't have a rigid, strategic system in place.
And this brings us to a stark warning straight from the principal examiner reports, revealing the exact trap where students throw away top-tier marks. The classic mistake is providing generic answers that aren't specific to the question context. Think about it. When an examiner asks you to explain the purpose of a general journal in a scenario about a specific business, let's call them Sam's Electronics. If you just write, "It's used for non-routine transactions," that's a generic, low-band answer. You'll get minimal credit. To unlock the highest marking bands, you have to say, "It is used for non-routine transactions for Sam's Electronics, such as the purchase of new store fixtures on credit, which cannot be recorded in the cash book." Context is king here. If you aren't linking your knowledge directly to the specific data they give you, you are literally just leaving marks on the table.
To make sure you completely crush this exam, we'll dissect the examiner's perspective through these 5 strategic pillars. We'll cover the top examiner traps, core accounting principles, technical methodology, critical analysis, and finally, your ultimate exam strategy. Let's jump straight into Section 1, the top examiner traps.
When you look at real examiner data across thousands of scripts globally, very clear patterns emerge. In fact, there are exactly 3 major pitfalls that consistently destroy student scores.
Avoiding these 3 traps is critical. Trap number 1, using the wrong approach for the wrong context. I see students do this all the time. They see a cash sale and mindlessly throw it into the sales journal just because their brains saw the word sale. Total mismatch. Trap number 2, forgetting format and presentation conventions. Listen, examiners are merciless here. You forgot the date, mark lost. Missing a folio reference, mark lost. And trap number 3, which we touched on, is providing a purely theoretical answer without weaving in the specific names, numbers, or unique constraints provided in the actual exam prompt.
Moving right along to Section 2, the core accounting principles. The big conceptual shift you need to make is realizing that books of prime entry are not just a random list of columns to fill out. They represent a highly structured theoretical architecture. It's all about causal relationships. Think of it like a chain reaction. An economic event occurs, that generates a source document. That specific document necessitates an entry in a book of prime entry, which then automatically causes a double entry posting in the ledgers. If you deeply understand this chain of causation, you will never, ever get lost in a multi-stage question. You'll instantly know exactly where you are in the accounting cycle.
And this perfectly illustrates how top-scoring candidates separate themselves from the pack. They don't just memorize isolated facts. Examiners explicitly award the highest marks to students who actively reference cross-topic connections. An average student looks at a cash book in total isolation, but an elite Cambridge scholar, they understand how a tiny mistake in the purchases journal ripples outward to create massive errors in the control accounts, which then requires a suspense account correction, which ultimately distorts the final financial statements. When you can articulate those cross-topic connections in an evaluation paragraph, that's exactly how you secure those top-tier assessment objective marks.
Let's pivot to Section 3, the technical methodology. Because theory means nothing without execution.
I want you to really look at this breakdown because it's a huge breakthrough for a lot of students. Examiners are deeply focused on what we call the method mark strategy. This means the vast majority of your success actually lies in the process, not just perfectly calculating the final outcome number.
You might tally up the sales journal incorrectly simply because your finger slipped on the calculator. If you just wrote down that final wrong number with no working, you'd get a 0. But if you clearly document your process and correctly label your transfers to the sales account and individual debtor accounts, the examiner will shower you with method marks for demonstrating the correct accounting logic, even if the final outcome is mathematically slightly off. Process is literally everything.
Now, presenting your information must strictly follow these professional conventions. You have to treat your exam paper like a formal document being presented to a corporate client. Your headings must be proper. Don't just hastily scribble cash book, write cash book for the month ended. The terminology has to be exact. Never write money in, write receipts. You have to apply standard formats using the correct columns for discounts, cash, and bank. And annotations. The narratives in your general journal must be clear and systematic. Let me be clear, a narrative isn't just a nice-to-have option, it is a rigid structural requirement.
Whenever you are staring down a complex exam question, you must rigidly deploy this 5-step tactical checklist. And real quick, before we break down this specific workflow, if you want to consistently master these high-level techniques, make sure you hit the subscribe button for Ace the Exam's IGCSE O and A levels at the handle @Ace the Exam IGCSE, and enable all notifications so you never miss our weekly Cambridge breakthrough strategies. Okay, let's execute the checklist. Step 1, deconstruct the question. Physically underline those command words. Step 2, extract relevant data. Highlight the specific source documents. Step 3, select your framework. Ask yourself which specific journal applies here. Step 4, execute with clear notation, applying those strict formats we just talked about. And Step 5, verify results. Use the last 5 minutes to scan. Did I include dates, folios? This checklist is your ultimate armor against careless mistakes.
All right, moving into Section 4, Critical Analysis.
This is where we dive into evaluative thinking, which is the key to unlocking those top bands. Top-scoring candidates absolutely master comparative analysis. When a prompt asks, to what extent is maintaining a full cash book beneficial for this specific business, you cannot just bullet point a list of pros and cons. You have to deeply question the assumptions. Is this business small enough that a 3-column cash book is actually overkill? You have to consider different perspectives, say the daily cashier's needs versus an external auditor looking for fraud. You must seamlessly use comparative connectives like conversely, however, and in contrast. And ultimately, you have to draw a definitive, hard-hitting conclusion based on relative importance. Do the benefits actually outweigh the costs for this specific scenario? That is what true critical analysis looks like to an examiner.
Finally, Section 5, synthesizing this into your final exam strategy. I want to give you a highly effective memory hack. Practice linking these technical steps together as a visual story, so the formatting and terminology become total second nature even under extreme time pressure. Picture a physical paper invoice starting its journey on a dusty warehouse loading dock. Visualize it being physically carried into a brightly lit accounting office. Watch it get transcribed row by row into the sales journal with a heavy physical date stamp being pressed onto the page. Then visualize that final total being bundled up and carried over to the general ledger. Creating this detailed mental movie anchors the procedural steps in your brain. So when that exam clock is ticking down and the pressure is on, you don't freeze up. You just play the movie and you follow the steps.
I can't emphasize this enough. The difference between a mediocre grade and an A-level breakthrough is making sure you never write a generic answer. You must link every single procedural point right back to the specific scenario. Let's look at the difference. An average, low-scoring answer just says, a sales journal records credit sales. That's a dictionary definition. But an elite, context-specific response? It says, the sales journal for this retail clothing business will officially capture the high volume of credit sales to local boutiques, allowing the total to be transferred to the sales account periodically, thereby reducing ledger clutter. Do you see the difference there? One is just reciting a fact, the other is a strategic, high-level application of knowledge to a specific problem.
So think critically about your next practice paper. Are you going to fall for the traps, lose points on sloppy formatting, and write generic definitions? Or are you going to execute that 5-step framework with absolute precision and link every entry perfectly to its context? It's entirely up to you. Remember to subscribe to @AceTheExam_IGCE for more weekly masterclasses just like this explainer. Drop your target grade in the comments below right now so we can hold you accountable to your highest goals. Keep practicing, stay incredibly strategic, and I will see you in our next explainer. Let's ace these exams.